All right, good morning, everybody. Hopefully you're not too hungover. I know there were a lot of parties last night, so we're here to talk a bit about personalization this morning. I have a product, and I want to sell it to everyone. Everybody should buy my product, because it's what you need, right? I have a product. Well, okay, maybe not everybody. Maybe a subset of you should buy my product. You know, maybe in the enterprise, maybe in banking and healthcare. Maybe let's target that. Let's go there. But even that doesn't get to the point. You know, maybe inside of banking and healthcare in the enterprise, I should pick a few personas, right? We've heard that's a best practice. Maybe I should do that, right? I'll target the CMO. That's who I'm going to target in the enterprise, banking, and healthcare. But at the end of the day, still, a persona doesn't buy my product, right? Carrie buys my product. Tracy buys my product. Ray buys my product, right? A person, a human, buys my product. If we look back even just in 10 years, right, we have come a long way from the options available to us as consumers, right? We used to have very limited options, and as we look forward, our lives are being flooded with new things, new SaaS, new everything that we can sign up for. If you follow the MarTech kind of guideline every year that comes out around February, March timeframe, right, it just continues to grow. Even in the B2B space, there's more and more and more software, more and more and more options for us to deal with. And so we as consumers, we as customers have started to blend these different things together, but we also understand that we are giving up more data than we ever have before in our lives. Right, new technologies are creating smarter experiences for us to engage with our customers. We've got businesses and we expect technology to enable brands to work with us in a personalized and highly contextual way as well. And not only that, if you suck at customer experience, I'm going to leave you, right? It's not hard to switch anymore. It's pretty easy to try something and determine if you want to go with a brand or not. Some solutions are stickier than others, we'll acknowledge that, but for the most part, we always look to move beyond companies that we don't get along with, companies that we don't like. The other big realization that has come is we are a culture of immediacy, right? Netflix completely custom tailors all their personalization recommendations to me. That percentage recommendation score is tailored to you individually. It's why when you give your account to a friend, it jacks up what it recommends, right? I've got everything from Paw Patrol to Orange is the New Black popping up in mine, right? If you live in a city with Prime Now, I can have pretty much anything I want delivered in under an hour. Right? You got Uber and Lyft on demand, showing up when you want them. Starbucks, their little gamification piece where it says, hey, if you go and buy 2 of these sandwiches over the next 4 days, that's customized to you. You get a different one than I get to drive behavior. So we know personalization works. And you might be saying, Jeff, why are you talking about consumer brands to me? This is a B2B conference. Get off the stage, right? No. The last best experience that anyone has anywhere becomes the minimum expectation for the experience they want everywhere. This is a quote by a gal at IBM, and it could not be more true today for us as B2B marketers as it is for the consumers around us, right? We look at a company and say, well, why can't you do that? They give me a great experience, right? We look at the things in our consumer world, and we expect them to be reflected in our B2B world, in our business dealings that we're dealing with every day. So you've got to look at what those minimum experiences are that your customers are having and see what you can replicate over into your space. So let's talk personalization. I've only got 30 minutes with you guys, so it's a lot to cover in a short period of time. So I broke it down to 4 key areas with personalization, right? First off, you have data. We'll talk a little bit about that. You have personalization and strategy that you need to take into account. You have personalization and tactics, actually how you execute at the digital level. And then you have personalization in sales and even customer service, right? The dawn of the CSM is growing more and more on that front. So we're going to dive quickly into each of these. I'm happy to chat more offline with you guys to go deeper on these. So let's start with data and personalization. So we have varying layers of, or levels of data intelligence is what I like to talk about it, right? We have static, very basic, contextual, first-party data, third-party data, and then we have data with intelligence. To do static, right, to stand up, just send a standard email newsletter as we're going through that. To stand up a static website doesn't really take any data intelligence, right? We might throw Google Analytics on there for reporting and understanding, but to do it doesn't take anything. Then we get to contextual, right? The Dear Jeff, right? This takes just a little bit of data, just sprinkling of, it's like vanilla with sprinkles on top, is what I like to think about that as. First-party data, this is where, right, it's our own data. We use it for retargeting. We use it for web, email, right? We've got all this data we're collecting. How do we leverage that for personalization? And how much and how well are you using your own first-party data? Then we get into third-party data, right? Purchase, demo, geo, behavioral weather, all that kind of stuff. None of this should be new to you guys because you're all getting into these different pieces. But your depth on each of these is varying, I guarantee you, on that front. And we get, lastly, to this data plus intelligence. And this is where, if you've probably attended half the sessions at this conference, right, we hear, that's where you got to be. You got to be there. Right? You've got to be combining your first party, your third party, algorithms, machine learning, AI. You've got to do that. But the reality is, not all of our businesses are ready for that, right? And we have to take a look at it. We're all at varying degrees of maturity leveraging these different data sources. You might have a single algorithm doing lead scoring for you, and you're not doing next best action, right? There's a whole world of maturity across this data spectrum. And why does data matter? Well, it kind of goes without saying that it's core to really understanding your customer. Data is the core to delivering true personalization as you're going through it. The other reality that we're seeing is less than 10% of companies have actually effectively broken down their own data silos inside of their organizations. This stat is just from 2017. That means we're doing barely anything with our first-party data. We think we are, but we haven't even broken down all those data silos as a core part of that. The bad thing is our customers know that they're giving up more data than ever, which means they expect personalized experiences. They expect you to know the context and their unique needs when you engage with them. And switching is easy. Over half of customers will bail if they feel like they're treated like a number. I'll give some fun examples on that one because I get them on LinkedIn all the time. Got one at this conference, even through the Message app. So let's pivot quickly to strategy, because all these things come together around tactics and execution. We go from our strategy perspective of targeting everybody to define segments to then getting to our ideal customer profiles as we go through this. Tracy from Inside View was kind enough to let me borrow a few slides because I love them as an illustrative example. Right, when we take a look at this, they mapped all of their industries that they were targeting, right? And they built a matrix XY axis as you take a look at that. You define that for your own business. But the question is, who is worth personalizing and spending a lot of time on? Who is worth doubling down on to grow our business? Right? We could target all of these, and that's a huge library of content and development and messaging and ads and right that I have to do. So how do I trim that down? So they defined their ideal customer profile as companies that have a high retention rate, high renewal rate, and they tend to spend a lot of money, right, on buying these things. Well, that's easier. I've got 5 industries. That makes that a lot simpler. So now I'm able to take my ideal customer profile, overlay that with my total addressable market, and then start to get into things like I'm going to target Sally, the VP of sales, and she's in the enterprise, and it is based on the West Coast, and that, right, there's reasons we would pick different geos and things like that. And this is where, right, that promise of account-based marketing starts to come to fruit. So it's really interesting taking a look at it from a strategy perspective is how and where does personalization matter in context of your buyer's journey? A lot of companies will say, everywhere, you got to personalize everything. The answer is no, you don't, right? You have to think about what are the moments where that matters the most. So personalization in tactics. Really what we're looking to do with this when we add personalization is how do we humanize our digital interactions, right? How do we add that human element so that I don't feel like a number as we go through it? And right, there's the basic tactics as we look at this: email, web, advertising. I'm going to talk on those. I know there are more, lots more tactics, right? You got social, content marketing can be totally personalized. Social selling should be personalized. I can't tell you, I got another one this morning. Hey Jeff, it looks like we have a lot of connections in common. We should connect. I think I've gotten that exact copy-pasted email from no less than like 15 different companies in the last month. Why don't you take a moment and say, hey, Jeff, I see that we know X person in common. I met them at this great conference. Let's talk. Love to connect with you on this. Right? Just take a moment. Don't copy paste. I blow off those people every time. Right? That's a moment when personalization matters. Sales enablement, another great example of when you can do, right, humanizing those digital interactions at a fairly simplistic level. Right? I can build my vanilla deck and then I can change out imagery and some keywords in it to swap industries. Right? It's not hard to add a dash of personalization into the work that we do. But I want to focus on these big three, right? Web, email, advertising. So email, right? We have static. That's my bulk newsletters as I'm going through that. Not personalized at all. And then we get into the basic. And this is what most of you, I'm assuming, are doing at a minimum. Right? Dear Jeff. Yet we still screw this up. The merge field mess up. Or even worse, it says Dear Sally when it's coming to me. Like, come on. This isn't hard. We've been doing this for years, yet we still screw it up as marketers. It's better to do static and unpersonalized than to do personalized bad or poorly. Because this pisses me off. The other one, I'm like, all right, you're doing your job. Great. Thumbs up. Interesting. I'll glance at it, right? So don't do this poorly, and yet we still do. Right? This is a newspaper headline from not that long ago. How does that get past the editor? So we still do basic personalization poorly. So we've got to check ourselves as we're taking a look at that. Right? And I hit on this briefly last year, but even just simple branching in your emails. Most of the software out there can do this, yet most companies are not. I convert on a white paper on this. So you send me email 1. Based on what I click on, it's not hard to have a branch that says, oh, Jeff clicked on this. We should send him email 2A or 2B or 2C. Right? And you can just even use that for sales intelligence to tell you by the time they qualify or they hit your lead score threshold, at least you know what sales should talk to them about. But most companies aren't even doing this. And then we get to variable context. And this is where we start to get, right, we have all kinds of different merge fields, maybe based on your location or your role. I swap out the imagery, the paragraph swap, all kinds of stuff along that front. And you can get pretty much as fancy with this in your emails as you want to. But again, where are you on that spectrum? With web, very similar. A lot of businesses still today are static websites. Right? They don't change at all based on any behavior or any information that you have. And we advance right to demo geo, retroactive content. So what you looked at last time or the emails you interacted with change the website the next time you return to it. And we get to preemptive context, right? And this is where we get to, there's a few companies out there that'll do this where as the site's loading, it's pinging LinkedIn and saying, hey, what role, industry, and seniority level is this person? And the website will turn into that for them, totally personalized on that front. And then we get to that fully dynamic website context, which is taking in retroactive, machine learning, right, all kinds of stuff, looking at next best action, next best offer that I really want to merge together in context of your web and digital journey with me. Similarly with advertising, advertising is the one I'd say you all are doing. If you work with an agency, you're doing a great job on personalization on this, right? You have your standard SEM and your standard just display ads that don't change, right? You've got your content that might swap out over time on that. Retargeting is pretty easy to do nowadays. Start adding demo geo, behavioral, advanced ABM, tools like Terminus out there with that. And most agencies are doing at least retargeting, if not further upstream on that front. And they're doing that for you. So advertising is one of the easier ones to get personalization right. But how do I get down to, I'm targeting the CFO, and I want them to see this message. And I also want to target the CMO, and I want them to see this message in ads, right? And we can get pretty complex with their advertising personalization as well. So where are you on the tactic journey, right, as you go through those? And you can map those out, similarly the maturity levels for the others that you're working with, and have a conversation on where will it actually matter as you're going through that. We're also seeing new tactics emerge, things like bots and AI assistance for sales and marketing as we're going through that, right? What we've come to want our bots to do, and what we're seeing in some of the research and work that we're doing, is we want these bots to actively kind of shadow customers as they're going through their journey, listen to voice, listen to text, understand, right? Not only sentiment, but all use cases, know when to respond, and more importantly, when should I escalate to a human, right, as a part of that, and then to remember. So when you come back to the website, maybe we had this conversation, and it can pick up and start again on that. Or we're also seeing these bots live behind the scenes and actively change what a sales rep or ISR is talking about because it's coaching them based on the ongoing conversation. So a really interesting new kind of newer tactic that's starting to emerge in the space as well. So brief overview of tactics. Personalization in sales. So how do we digitally enable our teams to be more effective? Right, this is where we start to look at this one. How do you not be that LinkedIn sales navigator guy sending me a vanilla statement, we got a few contacts in common? So I hate the term account-based marketing. You're doomed to fail if you keep it just account-based marketing. I like account-based engagement because if marketing does it independently, you're going to fail, right? You can route leads all day, but if you haven't fixed the sales process, the sales engagement process, you're not going to do well in your strategies as you go through that. I also think that account-based engagement has been kind of classified down to that last level, predictive in its finest state there. But we can get started with Excel, right? Simple things like that, where I can say, here are the 5 accounts I want to go get to. Here's the product I want to sell to them. Here are the 6 people I think I need around the buyer's table. Here's the message each one of those people need. I can do that in Excel. It's not hard, right? Then I start mapping my tactics to those kinds of things. How's my sales team going to engage and target them? My existing account expansion. Hey, who are these accounts that we want to retain, expand, right? New book of business, reach a different buying unit, different department inside of it. That, again, can be done in Excel, but we have to come up with our personalization strategy on who do we need to talk to inside of that. It takes just a little LinkedIn research. Not a lot, right? You can get going on a lot of the stuff. And you can get as fancy with these as you want to. Also, right? I can have algorithms running that say, hey, this account looks like it's potentially going to churn. Maybe I put them into a different stream, right? Personalization stream on that front. Then we have opportunistic, right? And this is basically reverse IP lookup is probably the easiest way to think about this. I see somebody's on my site. I want to target them. They haven't converted. What's our strategy on that? And then predictive, obviously, on that front, which you guys have heard more than enough about, so I'm not going to touch on it too much here. But each one of these, as you're thinking about your sales team, is what are those moments for personalization, right? On sales enablement, how do I enable my sales team? My decks are 80% of the way done that they can personalize them that last 20% because they're the one in the trenches having that conversation, or they should be having contextual conversations with customers, right? How do I enable my sales team to know not to do that silly vanilla email out to everybody? A simple campaign that we do, and we see huge success on it, it's just a dash of personalization. We call it our mug campaign. And so I say, I want to target this account, and I need to talk to these people. Hop on LinkedIn, our ISR's role. Say, oh, they went to this alma mater. Awesome. Send them a mug from their alma mater. They'll keep it. It's nice. They take our phone calls that way. Didn't take much time, but it's personalized, right? Versus like a standard marketing pack, it's something that they'll actually keep. Right, it's also the reason why when companies give you kind of cheap swag versus like nice swag, you get rid of it after you leave the company, versus if they give you a nice Patagonia jacket that's subtly branded, you'll keep it, right? We keep things that we like. And so we've seen huge success in just a dash of personalization. It doesn't take much, right? But we see huge yields from it. So I do want to hit the big caution button, though, when it comes to personalization. If I had a big blinking red light, I'd do it. There's a creep factor, right? Facebook stalking is probably the closest thing to it, right? We're basically Facebook stalking our customers and our prospects, So how do we avoid the creep factor on this, right? We know who we're targeting, where we're targeting, right? All those different kinds of things. But the fundamental question you have to ask, especially in context of the industries that you're targeting, the age is a big thing on this as well, right, in those particular things, is how well do I know you? How well should I know you? Right? If I start hitting you on all these things that are out of context, you're like, that's weird, I'm going to leave you right away. Not going to engage with you, that scares me. So this, when you're thinking about personalization across all of your strategies and tactics, you've got to keep this in mind. And with predictive and intent, you have to be very careful. I mean, think back to the early days of marketing automation where I could say, hey, I just saw you were on my website and you downloaded this paper, and my sales rep could call you 3 minutes later, right? That was creepy. Not as creepy now, but it was creepy back then. So we have to keep those things in mind, right? We have a product that'll even pull in like social feeds and stuff, and how weird would it be to be like, hey, oh, I saw you had a great time at this event. That's, again, creepy versus using that in context to enrich your conversation. You need to be very thoughtful about how you use the data and how you come off. Another fundamental question you need to ask is, what kind of business are you? Are you a high-volume business that does everything digitally and you have very minimal human touch, human interaction? That's great. Personalize as much as you can through that journey, avoiding the creep factor, and digitize the whole thing. But not all of us are high-volume businesses, right? Others are high-touch, highly personalized, building relationships. There's a great BD here. She's probably one of my favorites, and she takes the time to build relationships and memories before she ever has a sales conversation. And it's incredibly effective because she knows you. So are you high volume or high touch? The other reality on this is making the investments in new technologies and things like that are not always worth the investment required for the ROI you're going to get. Where are you today, and where will personalization drive the best impact for your brand, for your buyer's journey? Again, the answer is not everywhere. You don't have to be at the most senior level of this list across the board. You don't need to go out and buy weather data unless it actually matters to your buyer's journey. You don't need to go buy all these different things unless it matters for personalization, and that personalization will be effective. So take a look at that. Because I also like to look at this, right? Which would I be more likely to respond to? The best personalized marketing campaign ever, or simply a personal note, right? For me, personal note every time. It's why if you take 10 seconds more to personalize the LinkedIn in-mail to me, I'll respond, right? We're all about relationships. So you got to think about that. Because at the end of the day, you don't actually want personalization, you want personalized, right? You don't want a personalized suit, you want a suit guy. I want a trusted advisor. I have a trusted advisor personally in pretty much every MarTech category out there. I've built the relationships over time. I have people who are practitioners. I call them up when I have a problem. I get their opinion. I trust their opinion. I've built relationships. Guess who I go to when I have business that seems like it would fit? I trust them, right? This is a very incestuous industry. Like, play the long game, right? Like, you will see all these people again in different roles and things like that as you're going through this. Become that suit guy to your customers, right? Become that suit guy to your partners. So a few next steps for you guys as you're going through. Number one, audit your data. It's not that hard to do, right? What do you have? What don't you have? What are you using? What aren't you using? Where are the data silos that you want to break down such that you can be more effective, right, in what you have today, what you're not paying for? Audit your tech. Most of you are using technology, but you're not using it. You might be at 40 to 60% of its effective use. What are the personalization factors that your tech can do that you're just not using today? That's a really easy question to go ask. Go dig into it. Hey, can Marketo do this? Can Pardot do that? Can Eloqua do that? Go ask those questions of your marketing ops teams and dive into the tech and see what can they do. Where will personalization have the best return in your buyer's journey, right? Because they're all unique. And then which tactics should you advance? And also, probably more importantly, which ones shouldn't you, even though you got really excited at this conference, that's a really cool thing, but maybe we should wait. Right? I know all you guys can go back, I need another $1 million from MarTech spend, by the way. Right? You got to have these honest conversations and prove out, right, that these have that impact as you're going through it. Because the reality comes down to this, right? We can automate parts of our relationship building process, but at the end of the day, you can't automate relationships. So I hope this was educational for you guys. I'm happy to chat afterwards with any of you if you want to talk personalization in context of your particular industry. Feel free to follow up with me on LinkedIn, and thank you.